How... how did this happen? My mother said that she wiped away the tears from her face. I chuckled. It's a long story, Mama, but I'll explain everything here soon, I said to her, pulling her back into the group hug. Where are the girls? I asked. They're still asleep, but we'll go wake them up soon, my father said. What about Hannah and me? I asked, hoping they were doing all right. Well, Hannah got married and moved to the next town over, but Mary is still in town, coming to care for the village, just like you all three used to, my mother explained. The news made me so happy. I couldn't wait to see them again. Well, I have someone for you all to meet. I hope you guys can love him as much as I do, I said as my voice began to shake again. I was so nervous to introduce them to Doma, since I have never explained anything that came along with me. You all go inside. Let me go get him, I told them. As I rubbed the tears away from my eyes, my family went into the house like I had asked them to, and I scanned the village for my tall, well, how do I put this? Handsome husband, but he was nowhere to be seen. Oh dear, I thought to myself. Remember just how chatty and outgoing he really was. I walked around the village when I finally found him, talking to one of the townspeople who would probably remember me if they saw me. I wanted to keep it low since the village expected me to be, well, dead. I hid behind a small house and quietly called Doma's name. Thankfully, I wasn't spotted, and he wrapped up the conversation quickly so that he could go back to my home. What were you talking about? I asked, wondering what on earth Doma had in common with simple townspeople. Just ask them about their religion is all, he asked in his happy-go-lucky voice. I couldn't help but think just how incredibly precious he was, regardless of his past. It was genuinely something I wanted to forget about, though. No one on this earth was worthy to judge Doma and I's actions as demons. There would come a time where we would pass on, and only then will we be rightfully judged. As we walked up the steps to my small house, the familiar scent of oak and green tea filled my nose, bringing me peace and bliss rather than, anticipation. Mom, Dad, this is Doma, my husband, I said as their eyes basically popped out of their head. Doma gave them a cheeky smile, completely unfazed by their shocked response. How do I explain this? He was a demon just like me, and he saved me. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be here with all of you. My parents blinked at my words, still acknowledged at the news. I guess the last thing they would have expected me to do was find love as a demon. It didn't stop Doma, though. He walked to my mother and took a hold of her hand, placing a kiss onto her hand. You raised an incredible daughter, miss, he said, his eyes glimmering in the morning light that shone through the house. Ah, sir, it's a pleasure, he exclaimed at my father, going for a hug. I'm sorry I wasn't able to ask your daughter's hand in marriage. I hope you can forgive me. I giggled at how friendly Doma was being. I watched as quickly my parents perked up, and quickly took in Doma as if they had known him for years, just like I knew they eventually would. The empty shell that was once a demonic menace was now fully of humanity and happiness. It was a demon had drained his life for Doma. But that's when I remembered his family. He told me he didn't feel anything when they died. Yet, he was human then. Was it really the love that I had shown him that made him this way? It was hard for me to give myself that credit. But maybe it was time I accepted it. He would only grow to be further loved by everyone around him, so he would only continue to blossom. Knowing that made my heart grow. I would want something more for the man I loved with. Thank you, I whispered, looking up at the ceiling. I didn't really know who I was talking to, but whoever it was up in the heavens, they were sure looking down for me. "Hey, you better be nice to my sister," Dachi said to Doma with his brows furrowed. "Why, of course I love her," Doma responded sweetly. "What's your name?" he asked. It was obvious that my brother already liked Doma, but he was just wanting to be tough for me. It's Dachi," he said, answering Doma. "Well, it's very nice to meet you," he assured as he ruffled Dachi's hair, causing my little brother to slightly giggle. That's when, finally, the twins came running at me. Their sheer force of the girls jumping into my arms was enough to knock me on my back. It was a quick reminder that I can no longer heal the way I used to, obviously. But the day was spent explaining to my family the crazy tale that was Doma and I's love story. We told them every hard-to-believe detail that there was. Retelling it was felt unbelievable dream. Of course, not telling them the parts, but how do we get on that part? I don't think I will ever. I went to grab Maria as well, and once again explained everything that happened to me in my past years, especially. And eventually my parents came to the conclusion that it would be best to move so that we could begin fresh without having to explain an entire village why the nurse girl came back from the dead. So that's exactly what we did. Doma pointed us to a direct village with a low demonic activity, and with the money we had inherited from a cult, we built a house. The main house was large enough for my family to live and grow into, and we built a smaller one just behind it, perfect for the simple life Doma and I planned to live. We planted wisteria all over to ward off any demons that could eventually potentially come lurking. It was perfect. It was everything I could have dreamed for. 7 years later. Mommy, let's go for a walk," said the thin voice of a little girl. "Of course, darling. Why don't you ask Daddy if he comes with us?" I said. She was our daughter. I'm gonna butcher this name. I'm just gonna stop and give her a random name because I'm not saying that name without butchering the first part. Nico, which meant rainbow. I'm not actually going to be able to say it because I'm going to probably butcher it really badly. She was absolutely beautiful, a spitting image of Doma himself. She had icy white hair and beautiful rainbow eyes that sparkled even brighter than his. Doma and I also had a little boy that had bright silver hair like Doma, but my color of eyes instead. We named him Genji, which meant 2 new beginnings. It seemed fitting considering the second chance he and I had both. And when I was pregnant with our third as well, it was hard to believe my body still had the ability to reproduce, and I was grateful for that. I never expected for a world to grant us children after everything that had happened, but maybe God didn't hate us the way I thought he would. Doma walked into the den with our daughter's hand in his. Her giddy little smile lit up the room as we slipped on our shoes and go for our little midday walk. I wrapped our son in a scarf and tied him to my back since he was still too young to walk far distances. Nico opened the door and took off running in the same direction that we always walked in. Doma now grabbed hold of my hand as we walked, following our daughter. After a few minutes of walking, we stumbled upon her. She was sitting in a nearby meadow, her eyes wide with adventure. "Mommy, Daddy, come here," she yelled excitedly. Both I and Doma looked at each other as we giggled at her and walked over to where she was sitting. Doma gasped, and so did I. She looked up at us, slightly concerned. "You don't think these are pretty?" She asked us, referring to what she was sitting right in front of. There it was, the thing Muzan had desperately looked for. 3 perfectly intact blue spider lilies, blooming in the light breeze. Quickly, Doma and I snapped out of our shocked state and pretended like that we had laid our eyes on nothing. "They sure are pretty, but not as pretty as you, little one," Doma said to her as he knelt down beside her and booped her on her little nose. But later that night, after the babies were fast asleep, Doma and I had our moment to freak out about what our daughter had found earlier that day. "I can't believe Muslin was right," I said. "Me either," Doma responded. We looked at each other, both recalling the distant memory of our prior lives, the lives our kids will never know we had. "We should go destroy them," Doma said solemnly. And with that, I agreed. I ran over to my parents' house and asked my mother to stay at the house with our children. Doma and I ran over to where Nico found the beautiful flowers with a box of matches, but we couldn't find them so easily this time. "They don't blossom at night, Doma," I said, almost laughing. It was so ironic. "No wonder we couldn't find them," he responded as he scratched his head. "Better safe than sorry, though." You're right." Doma struck the side of the matchbox and lit little firebuds of light and quickly put it out before it caught onto nearby grass. Doma and I stayed there for a bit, letting the light of the moonlight drench us. He and I rarely stepped foot outside at night. Just then, it felt so right. The nighttime is where he and I met, where I and him had grown so close. Now we were merely humans, and stood no chance against the horrible demons. We didn't know if they were still alive or not, but what little we thought about them, for that matter, except for Tomio and Yurichio, I prayed for them constantly, and wondered if they were doing well. "You know, I'm thankful I got turned back into a human," I said, breaking the silence. Is that right?" Doma asked, grabbing a hold of my hand. He threw himself back onto the grass and brought me on top of his chest, making my heart skip a beat. "Of course. It brought me to you," I said, tucking a loose strand of his hair behind his ear. "I love you so much, Doma." "I love you so much too, darling." The end.
Bro, I want to say so much, but it spoils his part of the Demon Slaying movie. God, I just want to... Okay. But you guys have to figure that out on your own. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. And there were parts where, oh, holy moly, I definitely was shocked. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I love you all so, so much. Bye! Mwah.